At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. Welcome, everyone, to Dave Cooper Live, where we connect the AEC leaders with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. So, how are you funding your projects? Do you work with developers? Are you using green financing? Heck, what the heck is green financing? Well, today, we have a fantastic guest that's going to cover all of this and more. So we're going to welcome Chris Anderson, CEO of Vantom. Vantom is revolutionizing construction with modular technology, delivering energy efficient, climate resilient, and cost-effective homes at scale, and helping developers access green financing. Since their Series A funding in 2022, co-led by Bill Gates-backed Breakthrough Energy Ventures, Vantom has expanded by acquiring Affinity Building Systems out of Georgia. Today, we'll explore how Vantom is partnering with real estate developers to overcome rising costs and funding challenges using modular construction and green financing. Chris and his team are focused on offering end-to-end solutions for developers from project financing and design to final delivery. You're not going to want to miss this discussion. But first, before we hop into it, we got to have a word from our sponsors. Stream Modular, the only logistics company you need to transport your mods, pods, and panels. Our friends at Stream Modular are investing $50 million over the next 25 years to build the technology, solutions, and trailers needed to handle and transport the projects of today and meet the demands of tomorrow. Reach out to their team at streammodular.com to discuss your next project. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Ready to scale up your offsite construction business? Introducing 4A Constructs, your solution to finding skilled labor for offsite manufacturing. Say goodbye to the headache of recruiting a skilled workforce with hand-selected certified tradesmen that are expertly trained and managed for offsite manufacturing, set crews, and finish crews, ensuring maximum productivity and safety. Unlock the future of skilled workforce development for all of your offsite construction needs. Visit them at 4aconstructs.com. All right. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors, supporting members, and being powered by Cobalt Creed. Well, without further ado, let's hop into it and let's welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how you doing?
Doing great. Hi, Dave. Good to see you.
Man, Chris, we had you on the show a couple years ago. Vantom was coming on heavy onto the North American scene, and we had the privilege of talking about what you were doing back then. But for those who don't know you yet, Chris, why don't you take 2 minutes, tell us a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and then we're going to hop into the Vantom story and talk about where you came from and where you guys are headed into the future. Floor is yours.
Great. Absolutely. So I'm the CEO of Vantom, founder. So the initial concept for Vantom, as we reviewed in that prior show, is that we developed a way to factory build housing using a very energy efficient and productive thermal envelope that's a panel. We started our rollout overseas about 10 years ago or so, built a lot of product internationally, and a couple of years started our US rollout. I think when the last time we spoke, we just acquired a really nice plant in southern Georgia, Affinity, which we've been converting over to the Vantom system, and really focused currently in the Southeast on some further rollouts, which I'm sure we'll touch on here in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, let's talk about, the product real quick. Give us the overview of what Vantom's focus is. So you acquired Affinity, talk to us a little bit about what that expansion is doing for you and how it's helping you service, developers and builders across the country.
Right. So we partner with developers, and kind of our part of the puzzle is, we're a factory builder or a modular manufacturer of housing, very focused on single family all the way through multifamily, right? The way we do it is a little bit different than other factory builders in that we use a panelized system. It's a proprietary panel that we developed that's ceramic based. And we use it for the envelope of the structures that we do. So it's an easier way to build. You need less automation for the output. So we're more productive in most cases, and we're able to bring down costs that way. And the other huge part is that it's a much more energy efficient envelope. So we're able to reduce energy use in structures by up to 70%. So it's a very green product that brings green solutions to the marketplace.
So with that, where was the product originally developed? Chris, I always want to get back into this. Like, you got the brainchild of this. How did this product come about? Like, I always say, were you sitting at a bar having a beer and you wrote it down on a napkin and the idea came to you? Or, walk us through a little bit of where this idea came from, and then we'll get into the bits and pieces.
Yeah, the idea came from the prior company that I was also a co-founder in. And at that company, we built wood-based products made out of sustainably harvested hardwoods. This was mostly in South America. So we did furniture, but we also did a lot of construction products, windows, doors, flooring. And as we delivered these products all over the world, the thing that happened was, we'd go there and, we were building these products with equipment and automation and quality and concepts that were light years ahead of what was being done on site, right? So we'd ship windows, they'd be 1,000th of an inch tolerance, and you go look at where they're installing this stuff, and it's 5 inches off. The opening's much larger, smaller, and all this kind of. So I mean, that's where the spark came. The spark came from just the realization there must be a better way to do this, right? And so we started looking at options, and that's where we developed this product originally.
So you work with developers from project financing through the design through delivery. So it's really an end-to-end solution is what it sounds like to me. If I'm a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And man, I saw this show with Chris Anderson. I said, I like this guy and I like this company's concept and idea. Walk me through what that process would look like if I wanted to work with you and how you're going to hit all three of those categories for me.
Well, if you were a developer, you probably would have two big problems today, right? One big problem is that the costs of site building are just increasing constantly, right? Mostly labor driven. So, and then the other big problem that you've got is that financing your projects isn't as easy as it used to be. You used to be able to borrow maybe 80% for that project. Today, more than likely, you'd be lucky to get 55% leverage on that project. So it's really hard to get these projects off the ground. And that's where we come in, right? So as a partner, what we do is solve those two big issues that developers have. We are able, because of the factory building, the modular build, and the use of our panel, we're able to bring the costs to below site building costs. I mean, typically we're 20% lower, in cost than the site built cost today in the marketplace. And then the other thing that we're able to do is bring the financing to bridge that gap today for your projects, getting you back up to that 75, 80% financing that make your projects really work well for you. That's where we come in. And so what we'd be doing kind of process-wise is taking a look at your project. If the project fits what we're looking for, meaning that single family or multifamily products, then our team really takes it from there. We can design the entire project for you, from the architecture, engineering, et cetera. We do the market studies, market evaluation. And if we're comfortable with it, then we would be doing the financial structuring. And that means, really all of the structuring, making sure that the equity and debt pieces, all that stuff comes together. And we bring that financing in from our partners, so that we're able to take it all the way through conclusion in terms of, financing the project. And of course, then comes, the fun part. We build it. So we've got the factory build, and we go quite far into it. Trucking, delivery, stitching, and very involved in the completion of the project as well.
So when you say you partner with developers, is this like a JV where you come together and you work through your different factories throughout the country to work on their projects, build their projects, and deliver their projects?
Yeah, very much a JV. So typically we do get involved as an equity owner even in the project.
Sure.
So typically our developers will the main part that they're contributing is the land and their concept and the project, and then we're able to contribute what's missing, right? Not just the know-how, but also the equity sometimes if it's needed, and the debt. And so yes, it's very much a partnership, not just in the activities, but also on the financial side.
And as a developer, I'm assuming I end up having all the resources of the factory labor, the factory know-how, the engineers, to include, I guess, the set crews all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. And so as you know, Dave, I mean, still our industry is not doesn't have a huge market share, right? So most developers don't have experience with factory building or modular building. And so, often there's trepidation, there's a little bit of worry because there's all this unknown. We take that completely off the table because we basically do everything that they don't perhaps have expertise in and make sure that it works, right? So, everything I mentioned before. And I think that that's one of the areas when you kind of peel back some of the failure modes in our industry is that lack of know-how from the developer side. There's this gap sometimes, right? And that in that gap is where failure occurs. And what we've really focused on is trying to eliminate that gap.
Yeah. Hey, listen, trying anything new costs money, no matter how you look at it, I think. But our industry specifically, there is no training out there for developers. There is nowhere to go and actually learn how to do this. And for you to say, hey, listen, Vantom's here not only as somebody that can help you get your projects off the ground. We've done this over and over again. We are going to be a true partner to make sure this project is a success, because you're putting your goods behind it and your finances behind it. So it really becomes, to me, it sounds like a really win-win solution for somebody really that wants to dip their toes into this.
Yeah, I mean, we find that the developers really like the idea that the modular partner, the factory partner, has got skin in the game, right? I mean, we're not just asking for an order and we're going to produce for you, but we're actually putting our own resources in terms of equity and the whole team resources on the line and true skin in the game, right? So it really reduces and changes the risk profile for developers that are trying to get into this mode of building their projects.
Talk to me about green financing. That's a big part of this conversation. I'm not sure one people truly understand what green financing is, and I definitely know the majority of developers and folks out there probably don't even know how to leverage green financing for to their advantage. So, can you give us a little background on this?
Yeah, so at its core, green financing and where the opportunity lies is that there's an increasing desire in the investment marketplace, right? Investors, banks, et cetera, are really looking to place money into green projects. The reality is there aren't a lot of green projects, or at least projects that are truly certified to be green and that they can be comfortable, aren't just greenwashing, but true green projects, right? So the opportunity is there, and what we do is leverage the fact that we're building a product that is more energy efficient and reduces carbon emissions, right? Because of that energy efficiency and because of the way our panel is made, to produce a project, a build that is attractive for that green money to want to either lend or invest in. And at its core, that's what it is. It's providing an instrument for the green money that is looking for places to invest and leverage their capital to be able to do so.
And using modular construction helps you achieve or meet all those requirements much more so. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yes, because all right, let's break down why structures are typically not energy efficient. Right, one of them is not enough insulation value in walls, and kind of in when you use 2x4s, you're breaking up the walls with the 2x4s. You're breaking up the insulation with those 2x4s, and that makes the whole wall a little less efficient. So specifically, the way we do modular, we replace that wall with a panel that has no thermal bridges, and it's much more insulated. The insulation is better now. By building that in the factory, we're able to achieve the other thing, which is that 25 to 40% of the energy in a building is typically lost through the leakage in the structure, right? And most of that has to do with the difficulty of meeting tolerances on the job site, right? It's really hard to do a tight envelope, a tight build on site, right? In a factory, it's a lot easier because you're able to hit manufacturing tolerances. It's a different ball game, and so by combining our panel, there you go, with the efficiencies and tight specifications of a factory build, we're able to reduce the leakage and increase the energy efficiency of that envelope. Again, back to what I said before, to the point where we're able to reduce the energy use in the building by up to 70%. And so now the other part that unleashes is the ability to make the structure full net zero, meaning it requires no energy off the grid by putting just a little bit of solar panels on the home. You don't need a ton of solar panels to hit net zero. We're able to do it much more efficiently and more cost effectively.
All right. So, I mean, that is really awesome. How does the financing companies, come and like put all this information together? Is it all done through plans and specs and your relationships with the lender already?
Right. So what we've done is we created a division of Vantom called Vertical Real Estate and Investment, and we have a specific team headed by a very talented guy, Joe Blockno, who joined us to head up that division. And we structure the projects from the beginning, optimizing the sources of green finance. So let me give you an example. On a project, typically these days, the projects that come to us, the developer, if you were a developer, you come to us and you say, man, I have this beautiful piece of land and the bank's wanting to lend me 50% for this project. It doesn't work. So what we do is we say, okay, all right, well, we'll bring in a few different potential instruments, which can be green bonds. It can be things like PACE financing. It can be green LP equity, to bridge that difference between the 50% and the 80% that it typically, or 75% that it typically that is typically required for the project to really pencil, be profitable for you as a developer, right? And so that is our job. That division of our company not only structures it, but then we know the sources of all these different pockets of finance that we bring to the table and take it all the way through the closing, the financial closing of the project.
You mentioned the word PACE. Can you tell us a little bit about what PACE is? PACE funding, I think, is the word you used.
Right. So PACE is one of many different instruments that we use. PACE is available in some places. Basically, what it is usually it's municipal bonds are issued by municipalities or sometimes the state to
Mhm.
incentivize green projects, right? And so the states or the counties and municipalities make that money available through certain PACE lenders that do kind of the behind the scenes stuff, the paperwork, as long as you're able to hit certain standards of energy efficiency. So Vantom hits those standards, and we know and have great relationships with several PACE lenders. So we take that project to that PACE lender. They give us essentially the money that was raised with these bonds, which is done at a cost that's lower than typical financing and gets you a higher debt to equity ratio, essentially more debt into the project, which is what makes it more profitable.
Yeah. Who are you currently working with out there? I mean, you have projects obviously that are going. So can you share any examples of people that are leveraging all of this technology, financing, and the support that you give them?
Yeah, so as you know, we started our rollout in the southeastern U.S. So we're very focused right now in kind of the North Carolina to Florida
Right.
corridor, and we're working with small, medium, and some larger developers. An example, Trinity, which is a small to medium-sized developer with some really great projects. Bella Vista is another developer in Florida that we're doing projects that are that range multifamily all the way into single family homes. And all of these projects are really made viable because of what we just talked about. So in many of these cases, these were projects, for example, with Trinity, great project, really well designed, great piece of land. The problem was the financing just wasn't there for that project. So what we did was we came in, we redesigned it to the high energy efficiency build and bringing in the financing to this project, which is now green lighted and is a go
Mhm.
because we were able to do that, right?
Got it. Got it. And so the process of how you guys are operating, like you said, you're in the southeast at the moment. What is the demographics of the area that you cover? And then just to clarify on that, and then also you're doing single family home, multifamily home. Are you doing multi-story homes with this construction?
Yeah, so we're doing up to 4 story or 5 story on a podium is really our sweet spot. Our in terms of like the demographic, and if we focus in more tightly on really where our biggest focus is on affordability, right? So what we're doing is trying to address the bottom 2/3 of the cost pyramid with our projects, and because we're doing the factory built and it's less expensive than the traditional build, we're able to hit that. You add to it lower cost of financing, and suddenly we have projects. Most of our projects are coming in with sales prices or lease rates that are really way below market, right? And so that affordability component is a really strong focus of what we're doing. And call it workforce housing for sale in the single family is the one vertical that we're really focused on. The other is multifamily, but in a number of different areas. One of which is quite specifically affordable senior living. We're developing a number of projects in the affordable senior living side where we see just a huge need and by extension a big opportunity.
Yeah. So in the affordable side is definitely a huge opportunity. Are you guys seeing, like you said, you're seeing the cost savings on this, the return on investment as well for any developer that's working with you? From the sounds of these numbers, are very happy with what you're doing. Um, do you do single family development at all?
Yeah. So the single family workforce housing is one of the two really strong verticals. So we've got a couple of larger projects that right now are mostly in Florida. So kind
Yep.
of central northern Florida for different reasons. That's absolutely an area that we're very strong in and see a lot of potential.
You mind if we get into the nuts and bolts of this system for a second, Chris?
Absolutely, I love it. Get under the hood. Let's do it.
All right. So when we talk about, right, we spend a lot of time we're talking about panels, but we're also
Mhm.
talking about modular, you know, when we're talking about factory built here.
Mhm.
Walk me through your process. So, are you a panel builder or are you a modular builder, or is it project dependent? And then is it a closed wall system, open wall system? And how much technology is built into this? Because I heard you talking about, well, solar on the roof. Walk us through what the value add is of why you're building it the way you're building it and what the developer can expect from the manufacturing side of this.
Great question. So what we absolutely focus on is bringing technology where technology brings value, right? I mean, we're the one thing I don't agree with is technology for technology's sake. If the technology is not bringing an economic value or a measurable value, then it's probably not worth using. So what we do is we have this great panel system, which you showed some pictures of online on the screen, that allows us to, you have less parts. Let's talk nuts and bolts, right? So one panel replaces hundreds of parts in a factory. You don't have suddenly, 2x4s and insulation and drywall and the different components that make up a traditional exterior envelope. It's one panel. So you can think, right, in a factory, of course, if you have less parts, it's less people, less automation, faster. All of those things make the build more efficient and less expensive, right? So that's a critical component. Now, we don't use the panel everywhere. It doesn't make sense to use the panel on interior walls, for example, right? Because it's not, you don't get the leverage of the energy efficiency. We use the panel on the exterior envelope of the structures, right? And that's how we hit these really big energy savings. Now, um, part of the energy efficiency, which again, let's get a little wonky, right? There are different certification systems, right?
Yeah.
One of them is zero. It's zero energy ready. It's a DOE certification that you go for. We go for it. This is our standard. So the homes that we build are zero energy ready, meaning all you need to do is add a little bit of solar panels, and it will be totally net zero. Okay. Now, that requires other things. That's not just the envelope. You have to really know what you're doing on the energy modeling. You need to know, you need to put in the right kind of air conditioning systems. You need to put in the right MEPs and so forth. And that's part of the other know-how that we have. We're able to really build the entire system and know that it's going to be certifiable and know that it's going to perform as advertised, right? And that's one of the reasons why the sources of funding are willing to fund our projects, because these are certified projects.
Yeah, listen, and that's all done through third-party inspections, right, at the factory, and then final
Exactly.
inspections through the zero energy folks or whoever's going to give you that approval, correct?
Exactly. And it's Department of Energy,
Yeah.
certified third parties. And then with that certification come tax credits, right? So a zero energy certified structure, one of the benefits is you get a $5,000 tax credit for each one of those homes that you build that's certified. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. It took me a while to wrap my head around, zero energy ready. And the basic fact I tell everybody on that: if you keep your windows open and run your air conditioning, it's just not working for you, right? But
Right. Or put a server farm inside your house. That's not going to work either. But yeah, exactly.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So how much of the project is complete when it arrives on location? And I'm from the top of the plate up, still plate up
So we're
or
doing
podium.
full modular. It depends a little bit if it's a single family home versus multifamily, right? There's a little bit more work that's done on site for the multifamily, but for single family, we're around 80% is roughly where we aim to be with the level of finish. A multifamily, it's 60 to 70%. A lot more stitching and roof work that goes on the multifamily side. But we try
Yeah.
to do as much as we can to the factory for obvious reasons. It just brings a lot of efficiency.
As a developer or a builder, am I limited to my design and my selections?
No, you're not. We're very flexible. Now, we preach the other truth, which is the more repetitive things are, the more cost
Yeah.
effective it is. Can you do anything? Absolutely. But what should you do? That really we try to keep things affordable. So we try to make things as intelligently repetitive as possible as we're designing these projects from project to project.
Right, right. I also noticed on your site too that you have a big focus on fire resistance, hurricane resistance. Right? Why don't you? Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because I think for the South, especially you get into Florida, along the Panhandle, Southeast, these are all big questions now, and I'm sure as you expand west, it's going to be the same type of conversation.
Yeah, listen, exactly. Climate resiliency is critical, right? So I think that you look at two big trends that unfortunately are happening. One is climate change and the need for energy efficiency and CO2 reduction. The other is the fact that a lot of that climate change is affecting structures with much more severe
Right.
storms and fires. So what we try to do is with our build, not only address the energy efficiency side, but also address this other component. And it's no accident that a lot of our build is Florida. We're very, very good in high wind zones and hurricane zones. And I think as we start to expand out west, in particular, we do expect that the fire resiliency of our structures is going to be an attractive component to our partners.
This is going to be a tough question, I think, but it's also an easy question, I think. Why are people, why are developers not embracing this as fast as they should? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, especially in today's times, rising costs. You are saying, hey, we got controlled pricing, we got, because we can buy in bulk, we can run it through the factory. To me, is it the lack of education? Is it the lack of people just knowing what's out there? What's stopping more developers from going in this direction?
I would call it fear, and I would, in some cases, well founded, in that when if you kind of move into the put your developer hat on, and if you were to look out at the landscape, there are a lot of examples of where things didn't end up in reality delivering what the pencil said at the beginning. Meaning, a lot of projects out there that were done modular just did not deliver the savings or some of the other positive aspects that were promised. And so developers do look at that. The community speaks to one speaks to another, and that reality is out there now. The other fact is, as you say, there's not a lot of training that helps the developer understand why those failures occurred and how they can avoid them, right? So in our view, one of the biggest things that has caused many of these kind of failures in the past has been that the developer knows how to develop with site building. They don't really have an understanding of what the nuances are and the things that have to be done differently for modular. And unfortunately, I think a mistake that some of our friends in the industry make is the factories aren't providing those solutions. So that's one of the reasons we have jumped in and created a whole structure and team to do that. So let me give you an example. When you're doing a multifamily project, one of the big questions is scope of work for the general contractor, right? The developer doesn't know what the scope of work should be for modular. And so if we as the modular supplier, the modular partner, are not working with the GC to tell the GC exactly what their scope of work is going to be, suddenly the GC naturally is going to cost things out for the worst case, because the GC doesn't necessarily know either. And so it's really important to get in this one example, get the scope of work right, so that the benefits that of all of this work that you did in the factory roll through in the final costs and in the implementation of the project. So for example, when you're doing the negotiating with the pricing, the GC is negotiating the pricing for the electrical installation. That GC and the sub need to know what's different about a modular installation, and that most of it's actually happened in the factory, and that there's only 10% of the work per unit that you would typically have if it was a site built product, so that they can quote it right. So these are the kind of things that if there's not a complete service that is taking care of the unknown, typically ends up with inefficiencies that can kill a project.
Yeah, I concur with that wholeheartedly, and I do think that, and there's a comment in the sections, I'll put it up at the end as well, that a lot of developers don't really understand, based on how they're currently set up, to quantify what their costs are. They don't understand an end-to-end solution and really how to understand what the value can bring with the right partners and the right processes. Because it's much different. It's much different than site building when you look at how you approach these projects. What's next for Vantom? Are we 20 factories, 100 factories? How many? What are we doing? And where am I going to see you off the side of every major highway as I'm driving around this country? I can stop and say, I know those folks.
Well, you're going to see a lot more of that soon. We're about to conclude our second acquisition, which you'll be one of the first to know about it as soon as we're able to announce it. And our goal is to round that out with 5 factories, not all of them acquisitions. We've got a couple of greenfields that are on the board right now for the Southeast. So our goal is to put 5 in the Southeast before we move on to the next area, which we haven't decided where that would be. And eventually, our goal is to have 20 plants across the U.S. offering this complete solution, including the financing.
So, and you have another acquisition coming up. How many manufacturing facilities will that be for you then?
This will be our second one. So it'll be the second one, and then we've got 2 more that are on the board right now that, like I said, are greenfields that are in the Southeast as well. So we're getting pretty close to having those 5 that are our original goal done by the end of next year.
If I wanted to work with you, does it matter where I am in the country, or are you kind of focused on a particular geographic area right now?
Well, it depends what you're doing. If it's something that can be done remotely, we have a big remote workforce in a lot of the areas that we do, including folks that are overseas, even in South America and such. That the stuff that can't be remote, we're talking about the Southeast, and we're happy to talk to you and work with you for a relocation if that's necessary. But we're really focused on the Southeast right now.
Got it. We got a lot of thumbs up and claps happening here. Let me put this comment up because it was relevant to what we were just saying. Kelvin Hamilton architecture, higher upfront cost is what developers look at and see as a hurdle. They just cannot climb over. They do not look at the big picture. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going too. They don't understand the whole end-to-end life cycle of using a more modern method of construction or offsite manufacturing.
But Dave, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
Responsibility is it to make that easy for the developer? Is it the developer that we should be putting the onus on, or should we be taking it on?
Yeah, well, you know what? All right. See, let me get my soapbox, Chris. I'll be right back here.
Go for it.
Listen, so developers are working with architects and, the AEC industry around the country. Most of the architects in the industry, they come out of college really, 3, 4, 5 years behind the most modern techniques of what's happening out there. And on average, right? So I think, there has to be an educational process that starts, and there also has to be a showcase where architects and engineers can actually come and look, see, and feel that they know that this isn't, the old school trailer park trailers, 2-inch walls, right? All of that stuff. And there's that misunderstanding. And then I also think, kind of what we do, there's that media side. I always use the pharmaceutical industry as an example. The pharmaceutical industry used to go to doctors and, and they'd say, hey, listen, we're going to send you and your family on vacation, ... right? and that's how they get a script written. But then that got cut off by the government. And then they turned to the consumer and they said, hey, you should ask for my better product, which is this little purple pill or whatever it is. So I think it has to come from 2 different angles. I think we need our industry and our universities to start really embracing better ways of construction and building. All you have to do is look on the street. It's full of homeless people. If we're doing it right, well, show me where. And then the other side, I think, is just we need more media and people to give it, let the general population understand that this is healthier. This is more sustainable. You're going to have a better product. So I'm going to give the show back to you, Chris, because my soapbox will go.
No, I mean, to your point, though, so, we get a fair amount of exposure for being a green company in this space, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of emails and people sending us stuff through our website and everything, consumers that really want the product. Consumers absolutely want an affordable product. They want a green product, right? And so to your point, I think that pull is there. Now we just need to connect that pull with the capacities that we've got to deliver. I mean, the market is ripe for it.
That's right. It is right for it. And again, it just, we gotta be better at telling our stories to the general, public. And then obviously you need builders that are willing to learn new ways of doing this, which is cool. Let me go to another comment here. We got Henry Mickelberg. Sounds like an Opex savings that's going to realize money and achieve the green bond or whatever fills the funding gap. Is there an Opex commitment time period as a green bond condition, or can you build and sell? Apologies for the blatant capitalism.
At the end of the day, these things have to make money, so don't apologize. No, actually, the OpEx part of it is only gravy. So what makes the project attractive is the fact that it's more energy efficient and that it has a carbon reduction goal in terms of carbon emissions. So that allows that money that's been raised for green projects to invest in these projects. The fact that you might have a lower energy bill overall, interestingly, is still not the easiest thing to leverage. It's something that we're working on, and you think that, boy, that's a no-brainer. There's less a lower light bill, therefore the person that's going to buy the home is going to spend less on the light bill and they can spend more on the mortgage. Believe it or not, that part is still something that is not quite as straightforward, and we're working on. So interestingly, the way to leverage energy efficiency is not necessarily the OpEx, which is the first place people's minds go.
Yeah, agreed. Henry, thank you for that question and comment. Hey, look at that. We got the chair of the national, well, I should say the immediate past chair, the past chair. I don't know what he is now. Greg Ugaldi of the National Association of Home Builders, DC Live, Chris and Vantom have been working hard. Do they ever separate their construction efforts and financing program on certain projects? Great question. Thanks for joining us, Greg.
Excellent questions. The short answer is yes. That's why we have our financing arm as a separate subsidiary of the company. So we are able to that activity is somewhat separate. Now, where the power really comes is when the two come together, where you're able to build a product that has a lower cost and is energy efficient, which we're able to do. Now, if there were other companies that had that capability, we'd be happy to talk to them. And then being able to provide the financing. So for the moment, most of the stuff that we're doing is unified, just because the efficiencies really are maximized in that way.
Great. Thank you, Greg, for that comment as well. Listen, I'm going to go to another one here because this is interesting. So Nicolas says, the biggest issue I have had is the understanding of a project, the value by going into a modular build, and the gap between on-site stick build and a factory build. Now, the biggest issue I run into is this value you get in going down the road to a modular build, and the value, I'm assuming you meant value there, that the end user consumer gets once completed.
If I'm understanding the question, so I guess the logistical cost maybe in some of these cases doesn't exceed or exceeds the efficiency of the factory. So the reality is it shouldn't be that bad. I mean, mostly, you're talking about $1.50 or so on average per square foot to move a module 100 miles. So you can go a long way before you're racking up really numbers that move the needle. Usually we're able to achieve efficiencies in the factory that far exceed that. So I think it's just a well-run factory should be able to deliver easily 200, 300, 400 miles. And then when you look into high labor areas like expensive markets, you have places like Denver where people are shipping from a lot further than that in Denver, right, because the delta is there. Logistics shouldn't be the bottleneck.
Yeah, and as a follow-up on that, he was also mentioning about what does the end user get, the consumer, and I think that's really where the value starts coming in. And I think this is a misconception of what people think modular is versus stick built. And my good friend, dear friend, who passed away, Jerry McCahey, always said, a simple way to sum it up: on a job site, you cannot cut a 2x4, a 2x6 1,000 times with the same accuracy, right? Mm-hmm. That you can get out of a factory built like anything else. And what you're getting in the factory. just because the laborer has a bad day, you don't close up walls. Like, exactly what you're getting because there's so many people inspecting it all the time.
Yeah, like I said, well, I mean, so the example I gave before, I mean, traditional site building, you've got 25 to 40% of your energy leaking out because of what you just said, Dave, right? The accuracy is not there. In the factory, so to that consumer, the person that's going to be buying that home, what are they getting? Well, they're getting a much more energy efficient build, number one. Number two, I think the other misconception is that people have to give up on the aesthetics because it's somehow a Lego type of approach. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. I mean, people can go on our website and see the stuff we're doing. There's absolutely nothing that looks different than what a traditional build would look like. And then the third thing is, it's interesting, which is particularly as you get into the climate resiliency and hurricane and wind, a well-built modular product is actually built much better than a traditional site-built product because think about it. You gotta pick these modules up with cranes and subject them to forces that nature doesn't subject them to. So they're usually built much more strong than a typical modular build. And so kind of taking that next step to having a home that's 180 mile an hour rated for hurricanes and stuff, it's a shorter jump. So I think there's just a ton of benefits to the consumer.
Yeah, there definitely is a ton of benefits to the consumer, to include those energy bills that you will not be having to pay at the same rate as you pay.
Absolutely.
All right,
yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, we're just about out of time here. I see there's one more comment. It's not coming up here. Trey Shelton, 4A Constructs. Thanks for joining us. Trey's been a supporter of our show. He does all the offsite construction, manufacturing, labor, and he's working with big players around the country. So, Trey, always appreciate you, and thanks for commenting on this one. So, Chris,
and just to mention, Trey, we use Trey and 4A at our plant, and the next plant coming up, same thing. So they do a great job.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Well, I'm super happy to hear that. Chris, anything that we missed? What did I miss? I mean, did we get everything, or do you have advice for anybody looking to do this? The floor is yours. Go for it.
Yeah, no. So listen, no, you're very thorough. So the only thing I'd end by saying is that I think that being green, green business, being focused on green business, it's not only good business, but it's a growing business. So I really urge people to focus on it. It's an opportunity, a huge opportunity that's only going to grow with time. And I'm absolutely happy to talk to anyone that's interested in seeing how they might be able to increase the green aspects of what they're doing, and then leverage them in creative ways like the financing, which we're doing today. So feel free to reach out to me, anytime.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Chris from Vantom, CEO, telling you live right here. They're growing fast. They're making acquisitions, and they're here to help all of you out there build it better. And just to talk about building it better, guess what, everyone? It's only Monday. We got 4.5 days to keep building it better. Let's improve what we do. Let's build healthier, more sustainable projects around the globe for you, me, and the future of our children. I'm Dave Cooper. Chris, thanks again for joining us. Don't go anywhere. I'll come to you after the end of this outro here. But make sure you thank all of these supporting members of the Dave Cooper Live show as well. And if you want to support us, hey, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you. Bye now.
Thanks, Dave.
What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.